triangle strategy. Why do you do this to me, dude? Okay, so it turns out I was wrong last time. Triangle strategy is actually a rather apt name. There's triangles going on all over the place thematically. Okay, so yeah, look, in fairness to myself here, the game is quite long, and getting the other endings is not just a matter of saving from the last choice and then making a different decision, but we'll get into that later. For now though, the reason why Triangle Strategy works as a title is because the endings map quite nicely to a little thing called the Triangle Dilemma, or as Brexit coined it, the Impossibility Triangle. The Impossibility Triangle is often used in economics to illustrate a common problem. Looking at products, for instance, the common dilemma is that you have three properties: cheapness, quality, and speed of production. You can only ever have two of those things. Now, this idea of having three factors and you only being able to choose two of them is not exclusive to economics and can be more broadly applicable. Again, Brexit. But this thing is already long and political enough, so I'm not going to set foot into that particular minefield. For Triangle Strategy, its dilemma focuses on the abstract ideals of utility, liberty, and morality. In the previous video, I'd only completed the Liberty ending, and so I thought Roland being obstinate and ideologically opposed was just a character thing. But that was quite short-sighted, and really, if I'd read into the mechanics of the scales a bit more, I should have realized that no matter what choice you make, someone is going to revolt. So yeah, getting the second ending made me feel pretty dumb, but I think it makes the game look pretty good. So let's go through all of these endings, because though I was wrong in that particular respect, I was still right about there being a deeper meaning to all of the endings. The Liberty ending. If you choose to side with Benedict, you battle Roland and then go forward to ally with Esfrost to take down Hyzant.
Fire!
After breaching the wall surrounding the Holy State, we get the final battle, which reveals the true nature of the religion of Hyzant. The Hierophant is revealed to be a fabrication. So this is cool because it is very thematic with what is going on with Hyzant and their whole vibe, right? Throughout the game, it is revealed that their whole religion is a sham, and their subjugation of the Rizal in order to provide order is completely fabricated. So having the Hierophant also be fake is a nice bit of like fractal storytelling. But it gets better, because if we look at the final battle more closely, we will see a boss that is a puppet that creates zombies. Much like the religion of the goddess creates a bunch of mindless zealots and indentured slaves.
The goddess can never be wrong. What is wrong is those who would defy her.
Our ancestors stained us with sin the moment they tried to hoard salt for themselves. The goddess will never absolve us unless we dedicate our lives serving her here. Don't keep us from our atonement.
Excellent mechanical expression here. After the defeat of the puppet, i.e. religion of Hyzant,
but in truth, she was meant to be nothing more than a soulless puppet. A tool Idor could use to bend Hyzant to his own will.
we see Esfrost's ideology of liberty above all spread across the kingdoms. Benedict has completed his dream of delivering rule of the world over to Serenoa, and the player character is at the top of the hierarchy. So that's pretty good,
Freedom
right?
comes to pass.
Oh, okay,
An era
continue.
where any may access the salt needed to better their future. Of booming trade and flourishing industry, Norzelia is reborn as a land where the power rests with her people. And yet, the gap between the haves and the have-nots grows ever wider. It is an era of great wealth, hand in hand with terrible poverty. The more some prosper, the more many suffer.
The game then pans over to Roland, and we see that the world, under this more libertarian rule, has left many to fall through the cracks. Inequality is rife, and day after day, the number of people who slip into poverty increases.
My lord?
I hear them, loud and clear. The cries of people shoved out to margins of this new Norzelia. Soft as rain now, but soon they will be a tempest. One that will rage across all the land. Do you hear them, Serenoa? Their voices. And mine.
Usually endings are a reward for the player. Their hard work and the choices that they made get surmised here, and the fact that this ending has a twinge of sadness to it made me think that the game was going to do this with all of the endings. I.e., it wasn't going to do the usual video game affirmation, but actually reflect the world under these ideologies, both good and bad. The utility ending. The utility ending has you siding with Roland, allying with Hyzant, and essentially allowing their religious doctrine to spread across the land. The ideal at play here is that even though the Roselle will suffer, the centralized governance of the holy state of Hyzant will provide all the other faithful an equal chance to provide them the means of living their lives. Frederica, staunch defender of, and a Roselle herself, is not a fan, and like Roland in the Liberty ending, she challenges Serenoa to a duel.
I will defend my people's right to live, and so challenge you to a duel.
What I think is quite rad here is that he doesn't fight and just takes the hits like a champ, implying the sheer strength of his will/convictions, and Frederica yields but leaves the party.
You simply charge through everything, don't you?
And so I would not bend your will to mine. Go. Now. While my back is turned.
The game then proceeds with conquering Esfrost and trying to subjugate them into the ways of the goddess's teachings. The libertarian leanings of Esfrost, of course, reject this.
Yes, sir. We will defend our freedom.
And we see that Gustadolf would die rather than live under overt subjugation, and it is here where Roland can finally get his revenge.
So this is where I am defeated. Just know that when your resolve wavers, you will remember me and this moment.
But just when you think it is over, there is another battle where it is revealed that Svarog has turned the death knell at Asfrost with the aims of burning it all down to the ground so that no one can claim it.
I will close the curtain on this chapter of Esfrost's history. I will drown this land in melted iron and reduce it to ashes. I give you nothing. All of Norzelia will know that the iron heart of Esfrost yielded to no one.
Truly a country of libertarians. This ending also has a scene where Minister Exham admits to the fact that he had a secret mission to destroy the famous archives of Esfrost, which, as a quick aside, is just so schemy that I just love it. This is why the game gets compared to Game of Thrones a lot. It's just so gosh darn schemy. What this is there to do, though, other than an efficient use of world building, is that it makes absolutely clear the ideals of the new regime. Any information that runs counter to that of the goddess's teachings is to be burned, and anyone that does not believe is to be shunned or eliminated. And we see in this little snippet that there is rumors of some crazy nun out there that's going against the religious doctrine.
Well, she didn't have any hair, but she was still a beauty. She even had several ardent followers with her.
If she created her own religion, doesn't that mean she rejects the goddess's teachings? Should we tell House Wolford?
There's no need for that. No sane person will believe that madness anyway. When I passed by, everyone around threw rocks to chase her away.
Now, this is brilliant because unlike the Liberty ending, it doesn't show a scene of the nun in question experiencing the bad stuff of this new society. Instead, it treats her plight as a tiny footnote. Just a rumor, even though we know it's Frederica. Even though she is one of the main characters, She is treated in this ending as something entirely insignificant in what is the mighty, grand story that is the holy state of Hyzant.
But in exchange for their freedom and faith, the goddess's believers enjoy peace and salt aplenty. Those who walk her path know happiness like never before. They offer daily prayers of gratitude to her for their full bellies, safe streets, and an era of calm that has come at long last. A calm that comes to be known as the goddess's blessing.
The cost for this ending is freedom, so I think it is quite effective to, instead of seeing Frederica, just hearing her plight as a rumor. As if the Holy State's monopoly on information has broken through to the game itself and is affecting our view of the world. Or if you're talking politics in the modern day, she got cancelled. The morality ending. In the morality ending, you side with Frederica to just up and leave, to find a new beginning. Benedict is loyal to the ideals of the Wolford House and so cannot abide by this choice.
If you mean to proceed with this folly, then you will do so over my dead body. I yield. Grant me the mercy of a swift death.
No. Lead the people out of the Wolfort domain before the Hyzantian army assaults this castle, and keep them safe.
And stays behind to protect the people of the domain. This ending is quite involved. During the commotion of the larger powers' war plans, you sneak your elite force into Hyzant and convince the people there to go with you.
Everyone has the right to choose their own path based on their own convictions. That is what it means to be alive, to be human.
To be human.
Rise up. Come with us to Centralia.
I'm going. I'm going with Lady Frederica.
As am I. What is there left to fear?
You're right. If there's somewhere we belong out there, somewhere we can be free, we have to find it.
Yes! To Centralia!
To Centralia!
The party is hounded along their journey to the Promised Land and must fight with everything they have to free the people and escape the endless cycle of war and fighting.
Idor! Impossible! How did you catch up to us?
Nothing is impossible for one blessed by the goddess.
We've had enough of letting the goddess dictate our lives. We choose our own path now, and that is something we will never regret.
There you have it, Idor.
Very well. If death is what you fools prefer, death is what I will give you.
The final battle here is a protection mission where you must try to protect the Rosellans, while Idor, in his regular human form, this will be relevant later, tries to take them out. So like the others, this mission is quite thematic because though I am just cheesing it here on very easy. What, you guys think I'm made of time over here? It took me 120 hours to get to that thing, and that doesn't even include the Frederica route, which isn't recorded in the things. And I have much better things to do with my time, okay? Like drinking tea. Very important. The other two endings all involve specifically destroying an incompatible ideology, and this one is primarily just attempting to protect a group of people from persecution. And so, a protection mission. Nice. The dream does get achieved in the end though, and we see Frederica looking after a new generation of people in a land of peace, isolated from the constant fighting of Norzelia.
My mother told me what happened when I was a baby. She said we wouldn't be here in Centralia if it weren't for you. So thanks. Thanks for bringing me to the sea.
It was my pleasure.
The cost here, though, is that the player character Serenoa dies in the battle to get everyone to safety. He holds off the attack, but is never seen again.
Any luck?
None whatsoever.
My lady, I am loath to say it, but we cannot search forever.
Yet again, there are no clean wins. I don't think it is a coincidence either that it is specifically the player character that is killed in this ending. The way I choose to read this is that the cost for the most idealistic ending is the sacrifice of the self. You must be so sure in your convictions that you are willing to die for them. You are searching for a dream, a prayer, and so there is no data or other such previous experience to draw from. To fight for and achieve that dream, you must go in with a recognition that you will never be around to see those ideals become reality.
We will make our ideals reality.
So the opening of each of these endings does that whole, first scene foreshadowing thing that essentially reveals what will happen at the end. Choosing a side mechanically makes you lose a character.
You simply charge through everything, don't you?
This is the impossibility triangle at play. Choosing the liberty route means you get to keep the morality aligned character, but you lose the one siding with utility. What plays out is just a larger version of this idea. When you choose Benedict and side with Esfrost and their libertarian ideals, you lose Roland at the start, and at the end, you lose the utilitarian ideals of helping the most people. You only help the powerful. It doesn't seem all that moral, but there's enough there to warrant Frederica not leaving. It's the same for the other endings. The utility route has you lose Frederica, who represents morality, and keep Benedict, who represents liberty. Enslaving people is very immoral, and though there is less liberty, there is enough of it to keep Benedict on side. For the morality ending, you lose Benedict because you're literally abandoning the three kingdoms and living in isolation. The utility angle is a bit weird because you are abandoning the rest of Norzelia, which is a larger country, but on balance I think it works because if everything basically stays the same in Norzelia, the Roselle have been uplifted, so it ends up being a net positive in the utilitarian calculus. As I like to point out frequently on this channel, here we have a beautiful harmony of all of the different aspects of the game. The mechanics of choosing and having party members leave is singing the same tune as the story and events that follow. For Triangle Strategy, the game's narrative is one of compromise. Hard choices that you have to make that never quite make you feel good. In the last video, I spoke about how the game is about democracy and how it frames it as both a good and bad thing, but it is something that allows you to make choices and move ahead without regrets. These endings only serve to bolster that idea, but are more focused on the three paths built on the game's triangle of convictions. Pretty cool, huh? If only that was it. Sorry guys, I've kind of been lying to you. There's actually a fourth ending, so we can throw out all of this impossibility triangle garbage, right? A triangle with 4 sides? I think not. Checkmate Triangle Strategy. Get wrecked. You just broke your own narrative. Nah, look, listen, I'm just a little bit bitter that this video has taken me so long to complete, but it's actually pretty good. So let's break down the true ending, which is called the Golden Route, and what its inclusion means for the game. Alright, goddammit, let's fully break it down. So in Chapter 17, if you have followed a certain choice path through the game, you begin the Golden Route ending. It opens with Serenoa mulling things over and trying to find solutions that will solve each of the other route's problems without any compromises, because he recognizes that any choice will lead to division. So if you save those wildfire traps in Chapter 7, you can now use them to deal with the Hyzant's invasion.
The wildfire, of course. We'll draw them into the village and set the vast majority of their forces alight.
If you met Svarog and got him on your side in chapter 9/10, you can ally with him to take out Esfrost and then use the Death Knell to breach the goddess's shield.
Lord Svarog, yes. He swore to fight alongside us. It's time he made good on his word.
Then, if you sided with the Rizel in chapter 11, they can help you out as well at the end.
Thank you, my friends. Those who would fight, take up your weapons and march. We make for Hyzant at once. Aye!
Finally, if you choose to return to Wolfort to see Papa Simone in chapter 15, I'm not actually sure because this doesn't have anything to do with the consortium, but I think it might have something to do with strengthening his conviction not to lose anyone, and also planting the seed in his mind that he can forge his own path, and therefore not rely on the scales.
Be strong, Serenoa. Forge your own path. Lead the people.
No, Father. Stay with me. Please.
All this and still, you call me Father. I am proud of you, my son.
Please don't go. Father! Please!
Once Serenoa is confident enough in his plan,
if ever there were a time to heed my father's last words, it is now. I must forge my own path and lead my people. The scales cannot save us this time. The words of my closest confidants have revealed a way forward that the scales never could.
we get the scales acting all funky, and then all of the things lighting on fire, which nicely symbolizes that you can choose everything at the same time.
I will never turn my back on the promise of a better world.
Now, when this first happened, I was super worried that this game's message was going to go along the lines of, democracy is indeed bad. The only real good solution is to have the benevolent dictator. Give us them Ubermenches. Ubermensch? But thankfully, this isn't some Ayn Randian nonsense, though I'm sure you could read it that way if you tried. Anyway, as we continue, we then get a scene where Serenoa relays his plan to his crew, they realize the error of their ways, and then agree to fulfill their own specific part of the plan.
I shall lure the Hyzantian army to their doom here at Castle Wolfort.
Svarog knows who I am, and swore he would fight alongside me. I shall depart for Esfrost and hold him to his word.
Pray, let me be the one to journey to Hyzant. I would love nothing more than to expose their false idol for all to see, and lead my people to rebel in the name of freedom.
And then we have a divvying up of the entirety of the recruitable characters into 3 squads, each with their respective battles to win. And please note that Serenoa is not placed as a leader here, which dents that Ayn Randian angle quite a bit. After those battles, which are basically the first half of each of the other endings, we come together and unite to take down the holy state of Hyzant.
On the barren wasteland surrounding Hyzant, they gather, the goddess's shield towering before them, as Serenoa's plan reaches its climax.
This is where we have the final 3 battles that take out the last elites of the holy state, which include Minister Exham.
It was supposed to be me. My glory.
Minister Lila.
Now I will finally be united with the goddess. I can be at ease, away from this world of suffering.
No, we won't let you die. Gila, tend to her wounds.
And Edor, who has taken quite a monstrous form.
Very well then. It is time you knew the goddess's true power. More puppets?
Now, since I analyzed the other final battles, this one is also rather interesting since Idor summons Hierophants in this one, and he looms quite large above all. And I think works nicely with that whole, yeah, your ideals turned you into a monster type dealies. In contrast to Gustadov and even how he is treated in the morality ending, in this one, where Hyzant is brought down and the religion is shown to be a sham, he still refuses to cede from his ideals, and this inhumanity manifests as the monster in front of us. We also get this nice line from General Avlora if you bring her into this fight, which, combined with the fact that Idor summons Hierophants, I think is a nice commentary on the evils of divisive ideologies, but specifically those who perpetuate them.
You and Gustadov were but two sides of the same coin, and both of you will die alone, with only your tattered ambition by your side.
Considering that this is the final boss, he sort of acts as a representation of Gustadov and Idor in one, and to add to the symbolism, I don't think it is a coincidence that it is only in the route that is the most clear-eyed that you get to see this monster.
Open your eyes, Idor. The future belongs to the young, not the old and tired.
This is my chance.
Why, my divine rule was to last forevermore.
After defeating him, he blows up the palace, and then we get the wrap-up, where Roland is king of, like, everything, but he gives control of Esfrost to Svarog and Hyzant to Lila.
Of course, King Roland. I will do all I can to achieve my son's vision.
Minister Lila, I would like you to preside over the Hyzantian territory.
Gladly, King Roland.
And presiding over both Wolfort and the Rosellan territory. I would have none other than my dearest friend and companion, Serenoa Wolfort.
As you command, Your Majesty.
And finally, the Golden Route is capped off with a wedding, which was set up all the way back at the start of the game.
Your bride-to-be is safe. Isn't that what matters?
My bride-to-be?
Serenoa of Glenbrook's House Wolfort and Frederica of Esfrost will unite in marriage to strengthen the ties between their two nations.
But it's only resolved in this ending, the unifying ending, because all the other endings are quite divisive, and what is it that marriages are supposed to symbolize again? Oh, that's right, unity! Yay!
What better to mark the start of an era of unity than a wedding?
And on that, just real quick, it can be very easy to look at this game and find loose threads or things like the wedding, where things are brought up and then just sort of dropped. But given the nature of the choices, if you experience all of the game, it ends up being quite efficient and all of those things connect up together. Another example is when you go over to Silvio's place and he's all like, yeah, check out this rad as hell dam we have. Our job is to make sure it doesn't flood Glenbrook. Then later on in the game, you can choose to blow up the dam and flood Glenbrook. Depending upon your choices, you may never choose to blow up the dam, and so it will never be foreshadowing. Or you may blow up the dam, but never get that scene, and so it won't be a payoff. But that all depends upon the choices made. But I, for one, have gone through like 95% of the game now, so I do begrudgingly appreciate the work and planning involved here. Also, there's a really nice symmetry with the beginning of choices and some of the battles in the endings. For instance, if you go visit Hyzant first, the first battle you have is here, which is also the final battle you have in the Liberty ending. The choice to go to Esfrost, on the other hand, gives you this battle, which lines up with the second battle for the utility ending. And since the location of the morality ending is in some unknown far-off land, all of its battle maps are different in its ending route. So yeah, there's kind of a triangular symmetry here, which I think is quite neat. Coming back to the analysis of the Golden Route, what does all of this mean? There are two main things that stand out to me, and that is egalitarianism and radicalization. Now, I'll cover radicalization later, but for now, despite the fact that monarchies and whatever still exist, in this ending, I think it is a fairly egalitarian one. Most of this I attribute to how the Golden Route ending is set up. To combine the convictions. In order to achieve the goals of everyone, you need to embody every conviction rather than seeing them as mutually exclusive. It's all about unity over division. I find it rather interesting that the required choices for the Golden Route land in or are otherwise involved with morality choices. So you can't even get things started unless your general outlook is to make moral decisions. Then when the game makes you do this little quiz at the start of the Golden Route ending, it is invoking pretty libertarian ideals. Here, the player has to utilize their knowledge of the underlying systems and the events that have happened in order to deduce the plan. Afterward, when the plan is accepted, faith comes into play in the story where each of the characters have to rely on the success of the other squads in order to proceed.
Though we fight on distant fronts, we are bound together in spirit. We fight to the last for Norzelia!
For Norzelia!
In the liberty and utility endings, what ends up being destroyed is knowledge and faith, but here in the Golden Route, they are preserved. All of these three convictions are represented and required to initiate the Golden Route ending. How is this egalitarian? Well, in both Esfrost and Hyzant, knowledge and faith are used to reinforce the hierarchies, whereas here they are flattened. Serenoa tells everyone of his plan, which is a stark contrast to Gustulf and his schemes.
This would mean you deceived all of Esfrost. That you led us into battle under false pretenses.
In Hyzant, faith is given to a singular nebulous goddess, whereas the Golden Route has everyone spreading their faith to each other. The breaking up of the squads is also quite egalitarian, as you are forced through gameplay to utilize every character that has been recruited. So not only do you want as many characters as you can get, but you also want to have all of them leveled up and make sure that each squad is balanced. I.e., does each one have a healer, a tank, an archer, and have you invested time and resources into each of them? It's excellent mechanical expression that embodies the theme by combining liberty, utility, and morality. All of these parts of the game are singing the same tune, and then in the ending proper, after Roland flattens his rule by bestowing power to other people, again, sure, it's not entirely egalitarian, but like I spoke of in the last video and the nature of democracies there, given the setting and the context, I'll take the vibes that it gives off, rather than being entirely accurate. So yeah, the egalitarian and unity stuff I think is the more obvious theme here, but digging a bit deeper, we will find some commentary on choices and radicalization. When Serenoa tells the three other main characters of the plan, we find a similar sentiment expressed by all of them, that they were blinded by their convictions.
I am ashamed to admit that my obsession with the domain's safety may have blinded me to more aggressive solutions.
The fate of my people always felt so small compared to the war raging around us. Yet you would still choose to walk a dangerous path, rather than cast the Roselle aside. It would be my honor to fight alongside you, and see this through.
I shrank from my duties and lost myself to the idea of revenge upon Gustadolf. I may well have betrayed my own kingdom. But you, Serenoa, opened my eyes to the truth.
What's of note here is that if you look at their beginnings and where they end up in their specific endings, they have moved in the conviction triangle.
Punish me if you will. But if I hadn't gone gallivanting, I never would have learned the state of things outside our own kingdom.
Roland begins the game as an idealistic moralist, always fretting about doing the right thing, always thinking about the people. His ending is the utility ending. Benedict, as I mentioned in the last video, is very pragmatic, aka utilitarian.
In which case, we ought to choose whichever option ensures our survival. If we live, we can reclaim what we've lost.
But in the end represents the liberty ending. Frederica, being raised as an Esfrosti, begins on the side of liberty, and she says as much when you go to Esfrost with her. Through her journey and finding out more about the Roselle in this world, she ends the game representing morality. Each one kind of abandoning their positions and being radicalized by events and goals that have happened in the game. The Golden Route corrects this by de-radicalizing them. They are made aware of broader options and seeing the other sides as potential allies. They still end up fighting for their specific causes, but with the intent of achieving the goals of the others as well.
More than anything, vengeance against you and your accursed Esfrost. However, I know I must leave such grudges in the past if we are to realize a brighter future.
My reading of this is that the question that Triangle Strategy sets up through basically the whole game is rebuked. It frames the world and democracies to some extent as one of making choices, but specifically of making compromises, aka the impossibility triangle. You can choose one of the options, but you cannot have the others. That is how all of the game is framed from your first choice to the last. The golden route though says that no, actually, you can have it all. The impossibility triangle is a lie to force you down certain ideological divides, but if you think things through, meet the right people, and understand what's going on, you can have everything. Make no mistake though, this is not the easy path. The ideological ones are easy. You get one of them basically no matter what. The brilliance of keeping the conviction mechanic a secret in your first playthrough is so that through your dialogue and other choices, you build an ideological profile for Serenoa and the Wolfort party. You build their strongest conviction, and whatever that one is, forces them down that particular ending. I reloaded my previous save, and no matter which arguments I chose, the result was the same, which meant that I got the Liberty ending, because throughout the game, I'd apparently been giving a lot of libertarian arguments, which, since it's a blind playthrough, I am kind of worried about, but we're going to move swiftly on from that. The first blind playthrough is emblematic of the themes of radicalization. None of the characters or even the player realize that they've been forced down a path, but when reaching that final choice, everyone is locked in. To me, this suggests two things. One, that the choices you make are an illusion. They don't represent freedom in a particular moment, but are instead cementing a path forward. It's only when you enter New Game Plus and have all of the relevant information about the underlying systems that you can actually affect the harder outcomes and see that you have been blinded. Two, it seems to suggest that you need an almost prescient understanding of the underlying systems in order to actually break the radicalization and achieve the golden route. This is quite hard to do in reality, as it requires a lot of expertise, which is why I think it takes at least an entire other playthrough in order to achieve it. The golden route is hard work, and not just in the respect that it requires a deeper and broader level of understanding to break through the entrenched ideals, but mechanically, it also requires you to partake in double the number of battles than the normal endings, which I think maps quite well with the sheer amount of work required to bring people of different viewpoints together in the real world.
Idor, why not put your faith in people once more?
You would forgive even me.
You must atone for your wrongs, of course. But after that, you would be free to walk a different path.
So in the end, Triangle Strategy might not be about democracy at all. I think it ends up being a game about unity and what it actually takes to achieve it. The Golden Route changes the narrative, I think, quite substantively, and the other endings are used to set up the divisions that the Golden Route seems to want to address. Democracy is used here to frame the world in terms of choices, and that the way we think about choices being exclusionary is one that will radicalize people down certain paths and entrench them to the point where they will choose violence against their comrades to get their way. The answer to this, the strategy to deal with the impossibility triangle, is to reject it. At least politically speaking, no conviction is exclusionary of any other, and so you can, despite the status quo and what others will say, create a world that is more egalitarian, more unified. It's hard work, but you can embody all of the convictions if you develop the understanding and strength of will to do so. So there's one part of the game that I really like, where you have the Roselle, in your clan as part of the Wolford House. It's part of who you protect. And throughout the game, you're making decisions on their behalf and things like that. And at one point, Hyzant is like, hey, yo, give us back the Roselle. And, you know, we'll support you in your war against Esfrost. And the rationale goes, because you don't want to just go in there and kill them or whatever. So the rationale that you have, you go up to them and you're like, yeah, look, we'll change things from the inside. Just trust us, we'll come for you, okay? Don't worry about it. And so you send them off eventually. They agree to go. And if you go through with the things on the Frederica route, you liberate them. And everyone goes in there. And Jerome comes out and he's like, oh, yo, I knew you guys would come back. I knew it. And it's a very good payoff. But because I know that was a payoff, when I play the other endings, and if I'd done that choice at the start, I can't imagine how soul-crushing the endings would be. Because you, as a player, specifically made the choice to re-enslave those people with the promise that you'd make their conditions better. And especially in the utility route, you just don't. It was just a lie. And I can imagine Jerome sitting in those salt mines and thinking, any day now, they'll come for me. And they just won't, given how that ending plays out. So, yeah, that was something that I thought was quite, like, at both times heartfelt, but also brutal. And I think you can only really get that in a game like Triangle Strategy.